Almost 3 billion cups of coffee are poured each day, fueling a global ritual, with many convinced it is a path to better health. Studies even say every extra cup seems to shrink your diabetes risk. But what if you have never heard of a drink older than coffee, brewed from a so-called pest tree, packing nearly 30% fiber and real protein? The reason you do not know about it reveals how we lost a food by turning it into a problem. And that is where our story begins. For millions, the day does not really begin until coffee is in hand. It is not just about waking up. It is about feeling better, even healthier, with every sip. The belief is not accidental. Over the past 2 decades, researchers have tracked coffee drinkers across continents, watching for patterns in health and disease. The numbers are hard to ignore. In one sweeping meta-analysis, people who drank the most coffee, sometimes 10 cups a day, had about a 30% lower risk of developing type 2 diabetes compared to those who barely touched it. Even decaf drinkers saw a 20% drop. The trend held steady cup after cup. For every extra cup of coffee each day, the risk of diabetes seemed to fall by around 6%. That is not a small effect, especially when you consider how much of the world relies on coffee as a daily habit. But the story does not end with diabetes. Studies have linked coffee to lower rates of heart disease, depression, Parkinson's disease, and even early death. One review found that people drinking 3 to 5 cups each day were about 15% less likely to die early from any cause. And it is not just the caffeine. Coffee comes loaded with natural compounds, antioxidants, and anti-inflammatory agents that scientists believe help protect cells, reduce inflammation, and keep blood sugar stable. The ritual itself, the comfort of the cup, is only part of the draw. People stick with coffee because it promises a kind of safety net, a daily decision that feels good and, according to the data, might actually be good for you. Mesquite trees stand apart from the usual image of a coffee grove. Instead of glossy beans, these trees drop long, golden pods that rattle in the wind and carpet the ground each summer. For generations, families in the American Southwest and northern Mexico have gathered these pods at their sweetest, breaking them into pieces and roasting them over open flames or in home ovens. The result is a deep, nutty aroma, somewhere between toasted caramel and dark bread, that signals the start of a different kind of ritual. Today, a few small producers are reviving this tradition, turning mesquite pods into a caffeine-free brew. The process is simple but deliberate. Harvest, clean, roast at 350 degrees for half an hour, then grind into a coarse meal. Brew it like coffee. The cup that emerges is rich, smooth, and naturally sweet, with no added sugar. This brew reconnects taste to technique. But mesquite's story does not end with flavor. Scientific reviews of Prosopis pallida pod flour reveal a nutritional profile that rivals many so-called superfoods. By dry weight, it contains about 29.6% dietary fiber and 9.5% protein, figures that far surpass most grains and even some legumes. The fiber is mostly soluble, supporting gut health and steady blood sugar, while the protein includes essential amino acids often lacking in standard flour. The nutrition here matters. For the Tohono O'odham, this was not just a drink. Elders recall mornings in the 1940s when roasted mesquite would fill the air, signaling breakfast and community. The ritual was about nourishment and survival, not just taste. In their words, mesquite was a food that carried people through drought and hardship, a tradition now echoed in every modern cup. This is survival food and memory. In the world of rangeland management, mesquite is rarely seen as food. Instead, it is a target. County extension officers and land agents have spent decades teaching ranchers how to get rid of it, not how to use it. Manuals and workshops lay out the process step by step. Clear the brush, treat the stumps, and aim for nothing less than total elimination. The numbers are precise and unyielding. Successful programs are measured by 75 to 100% root kill. Anything less is considered failure, because even a single surviving root can send up new shoots, undoing months of work. The push for eradication is not just about clearing land, it is built into the economics of ranching. Public cost, share programs, tax incentives, and federal grants have all been tied to brush control targets. Mesquite is labeled invasive or noxious, and landowners are rewarded for turning mixed woodland into open pasture. Extension bulletins describe mesquite as a threat to grass yield, water tables, and livestock profits. The message is clear: if you want your ranch to thrive, mesquite has to go. This framing shapes how entire communities see the tree. For generations, the advice from trusted local experts has been simple: treat mesquite as a weed, not a resource. The idea of roasting its pods for food or drink is almost unthinkable in most county offices. When budgets, policies, and land values are all aligned against a plant, its history as a staple food quietly disappears. What remains is a cycle of removal, resprouting, and more aggressive control, a human-driven conflict that has little to do with the biology or value of the tree itself. Mesquite's reputation as a survivor isn't just legend, it's biology. Under the surface, its roots drive deep, sometimes reaching more than 50 feet below the ground. In dry years, when other plants wither, mesquite taps into water reserves far out of reach for most crops. This underground network doesn't just anchor the tree against wind and drought, and it makes removal a battle. Cutting down the trunk rarely ends the story. Even after heavy machinery clears a stand, a single living root can send up new shoots, sometimes within weeks. Ranchers and land managers have learned this the hard way. Extension guides warn that unless 75 to 100% of the root system is destroyed, mesquite will return, often thicker than before. But the roots are only part of the defense. Each pod holds seeds with a coat so tough they can sleep in the soil for years, waiting for the right rain or disturbance to germinate. Fire, grazing, or even brush clearing can trigger a flush of new seedlings, some sprouting decades after the parent tree was cut down. This dormancy, paired with the tree's ability to re-sprout from deep underground buds, explains why mesquite outlasts most control efforts. For people living in arid regions, these same traits have long been a source of hope. In times of drought, when annual crops failed, mesquite's persistence meant food and shade were still available. Its biology, so frustrating to those trying to clear land, is the very reason it has supported communities through cycles of hardship and recovery. Beneath the canopy of a mature mesquite, the ground tells a different story than the open desert around it. Desert ecologists have measured the difference in the soil. Under these trees, nitrogen levels can rise by as much as 1.3 tons per hectare, a boost that shapes life in places where nutrients are scarce. This is not just a quirk of the species. Mesquite belongs to the legume family and forms partnerships with bacteria that pull nitrogen out of the air and store it in the roots. Over years, leaf litter and fallen pods add more organic matter, creating pockets of fertility where grasses, wildflowers, and even other shrubs can take hold. These fertility islands stand out in harsh landscapes, offering shade, richer soil, and a chance for life to persist. In the words of one ecologist, a single mesquite can turn a patch of dust into a small oasis. In regions where mesquite is not native, the story takes a sharp turn. Dense stands of Prosopis species can overwhelm local ecosystems, crowding out native plants and reshaping entire landscapes. A 2021 review in sustainability describes how these invasions lead to thick, nearly impenetrable thickets that suppress biodiversity and disrupt grazing lands. The ecological costs are real. Native grasses and shrubs disappear, and efforts to reclaim the land often fall short. Yet on the other side of the world, the appetite for coffee shows no signs of slowing. The International Coffee Organization estimates that around 177 million 60-kilogram bags will be consumed globally in the 2023 to 2024 season. This is a market that rewards uniformity and scale, not diversity or resilience. The paradox is striking. A tree dismissed as a pest in one place is a lifeline in another. While the global demand for coffee continues to shape what gets valued and what gets erased. As climate stress and food insecurity rise, crops like mesquite, written off as pests, offer resilience. Most markets ignore. Nearly 30% fiber and deep drought tolerance are not trends, they are survival traits. Sometimes, what we call a weed is the ingredient we need next. What's your take? Share it below.